Hello, it's Damon here doing a draft for Arcane Cards. It's an Ixalan draft league, and today we're going to be focusing on the specifics of Ixalan drafting because it's a difficult set to draft in that it's quite punishing, and lots of people haven't been enjoying the format. You really need to know what the archetypes do, what cards they need, and it can be quite hard to find what particular direction to go in. So I'll talk about a little bit about that later, but let's look at our pack first of all. We missed on the rare, getting an Old Growth Dryads, which is barely playable. Our black card, Lurking Chupacabra. With the uncommons, the Marauding Looter is the only one that really sees any play. It's a good card. Also in here there's a River Herald's Boon and a Skymarch Bloodletter. The first couple of picks are basically all about finding what strategy is open at this stage. There's as much point in taking the Looter as the River Herald's Boon or the Bloodletter at this point. It's kind of a choice of preference. I'm going to go with the Bloodletter since it can fit in a non-vampire synergy deck, whereas the River Herald's Boon you need to be in a Merfolk deck, and the blue-red card is good, but you kind of do need to be in both blue and red. Looking at our next pack, so it's important, I should reiterate, to start off the draft with picks that are open picks, that they can kind of go into any flavour. So for instance, the Bloodletter I felt was the most open pick there, since it can just go in any black deck. It could go in a black Pirates deck, it's better in a black Vampires deck, black-white Vampires, but it can go in any deck. So by that same logic, looking at this next pack, there's a Sleek Schooner which I have not been impressed with, unfortunately. Again, fairly weak pack. Stormfleet Arsonist is, I guess, kind of one of those cards that can fit in any deck. Slowest Slash of Talons, although I'm not super high on that. The rest of the cards in the deck are pretty mediocre. There's Skyblade of the Legion, which is good if you're in a Vampire deck, and there's Queen's Commission. Shaper Apprentice, again, is pretty specific because you need to have a Merfolk for it, so I think I'm going to take the Skyblade here. It's an interesting pick between the Arsonist and the Skyblade, but you will play the Skyblade in a white deck, and if you happen to go Vampires, then it's just great. Nice little payoff here, as we can see, maybe we're getting a little bit rewarded and that our lane is open, since we're picking up an Anointed Deacon. This is the common you need to look for to get into the Vampires deck. If you're seeing this common 3rd, 4th, 5th pick, like we are, that's a pretty good sign, and if we take it, of course, it discourages other people from going Vampires, since this is one of those signal cards you should be playing Vampires. Other than that, signal cards in the pack, there's another Bloodletter, which is fine. There's no other, this is the only real signal card in the pack, so even if I didn't have 2 black and white cards to begin with, I'd probably take Deacon at this point, depending on what those first 2 cards were. But the essence of Ixalan drafting is, how to be successful, is to find the open archetype and just dive into it, because if you're not in an archetype, and you're just kind of shuffling around different cards, then you're really in for a hard time. This pickup is very exciting. Bishop Soldier, I think, is just the best common 2-drop in the format. Better than Tillinali's Knight, better than the Merfolk one. This thing is just so hard to race. Even if they play Tillinali's Knight on turn 2 and you're on the draw, right, you play Bishop Soldier, right, they attack you for 3, you attack them for 2 and gain 2 life back. You're already swinging that race back in your favour. Plus it's got Vampire synergies. I really couldn't be high enough on this card. I think it's critical to the Vampires deck as well, and yeah, just an easy snap pick over everything. There's not actually much else in this pack either, so I also count Bishop Soldier as a little bit of a signal, but I would play this in any deck. I'd play it in green-white, I'd play it in red-white, it's really good. Of course, black-white is where it shines, because you can pump up its power with stuff like Anointed Deacons, etc, etc. So looking at this pack, at this stage we're pretty locked into Vampires, so outside of something crazy, we essentially kind of just have to stick to our guns from here and hope that we read the signals correctly, and that's Ixalan draft for you. I am kind of confident because we didn't pass many Vampires. I think we passed 1 Skymarch Bloodletter to pick up the Deacon, and we got a late Bishop Soldier, and all of our picks have been Vampires so far. So that is promising. So in that case, in black and white for this pack, we've got a choice between the Phlasm Cutthroat and the Legion's Judgment. Legion's Judgment is a good sideboard card, sometimes main deckable, and we don't have any removal, so that's a nice pick. Of course, the Fathom Fleet Firebrand is a very powerful 2-drop, and as you can see here, Vineshaper, Mystic, Jade Guardian, very powerful Merfolk cards, but we've already taken 4 Vampire cards and another sideboard card. So for instance, if we went into Merfolk at this stage, it's very unlikely we'd actually get enough playables. As it is, there is a perfectly playable 2-drop in the Queensbay Soldier. This is one of the features of Ixalan drafting. You're passing things like, Fathomfleet, Cutthroat, Vineshaper, Mystic, when in other draft formats you could be like, well, I'll pick those up, and Thrash of Raptors, I'll go into the, maybe I'll pivot. I'll use some of these cards, or I'll splash them, but there's essentially no way to splash in this format, and it's more important just to have a synergistic deck, and so that's why I'm passing much better cards in order to pick up vanilla vampires. This pack is nice. It's got a Vicious Conquistador, which is fine. It's a vampire creature type. It's more of the aggressive style of play, but it can definitely do work. However, Queen's Commission is superior in the sense that you get 2 bodies, each of which can be pumped up with the Deacon. And again, this is one of the sort of key commons for the archetype. You definitely want 1 or 2 of these, since it combos so well with Deacon. It's very hard to block 3-powered creatures in this format. Most of the creatures, if you see outside of dinosaurs, have very little toughness. Like even the Deacon as a 5-drop is a 3/3, so it's very hard to block creatures that have 3 power or 4 power effectively. And that's also one of the reasons why things like Cobbled Wings become really helpful, so you can actually get your 2/2s into the air and attack. Vampires is an interesting archetype as well. It is one of the better archetypes because most of the payoff cards are in commons, like the Soldier and the Deacon, and the life gain is actually really relevant in a format which is as aggressive as Ixalan, so you can actually catch up from behind, whereas other decks kind of struggle in that regard. It's maybe they stabilize the board, but they're still getting pecked away by an unblockable Merfolk, or there's flying in the air and they can't stop it. So Vampires does have the lifelink, which means it can come back quite well. It's a good archetype to fall into. These Queensbay Soldiers, while they don't seem great, are a good sign. Is this our original pack? Yes, this is our original pack came back. I can't exactly remember what was in it, but it wasn't very good, and so getting a Queensbay Soldier out of the deal is quite nice. Pterodon Knight in our Vampire deck is only ever going to be 4 for a 3/3. I think we can do better. I think at this point I will take the Sleek Schooner. When you've got multiple 1-powered creatures, it does get a tiny bit better, so I could definitely see that ending up in the main deck. So here we've got a Sunrise Seeker, which has no synergy at all, and is a 5-drop that doesn't really do anything. Encampment Keeper. I guess this does have some synergy with the vampires, since there's a bit of a go-wide theme, but Heartless Pillage is actually pretty good, pretty nice little 2-for-1 card. If you're attacking early, and I've got a lot of 2-drops, that seems fine. Sword Point Diplomacy, sure. I'm probably not going to main deck this unless I'm low on playables. The problem with these cards that give your opponents a choice is that they're inevitably going to choose the choice that is better for them. So even though it looks like it might have a high upside, say you've got tons of life, and if you've got tons of life, if your opponent has tons of life, then they're just going to pay the life, and if it doesn't really matter about the cards because you're losing so badly, then they're just going to give you cards. So essentially it's always the worst case scenario for that card. Overall, pretty happy with that pack. We didn't get any busted uncommons or uncommons or mythics or rares. We did get a really solid 5-drop though, and some nice payoffs. It's worth noting the Skymatch Bloodletter did not wheel, but then I first picked this card, so it can easily go into any archetype. So at this point, pack 2, we're crossing our fingers to open vampires, and we did. We opened one of the best 2-drop vampires that we could get in the format. This one is actually better than Bishop Soldier, and I would take it over a Bishop Soldier if there was one in this pack. The real combo of this, of course, is with Mark of the Vampire. If you put Mark of the Vampire on the Vanguard, it's essentially, outside of like -1 skullduggery effects, it's essentially unkillable. Since you can attack, gain 5 life, pay 4 to make it indestructible, you're just gaining 5 life, you're gaining 1 life every turn, and potentially either taking out blockers of theirs, or just pounding on them for 5 damage. Really nice pickup for us. I would look to take Mark of the Vampire a lot higher now. Other noteworthy cards in the pack, we might wheel a Skyblade, which would be nice. Legion's Judgment would probably come back if no one takes that. There's also a Fire Cannon Blast that is a good card, it's not going to wheel. Someone's going to enjoy it taking it. Some Merfolk cards in this pack. There is a 1-drop flyer for us, which I'm going to take. Interesting choice here. Like, I would consider the Slash of Talons since we actually have no removal at the moment. Black and white is generally quite good in that it gets quite a lot of nice common removal. You get the Pious Interdiction, the Pacifism effect, and you get Vanquish the Weak, and you get Contract Killing. All of those are at common spots. You also get some of the better combat tricks in the format, and in a format like Ixalan where removal is so specific, you know, most of the removal requires the creature to have certain power or toughness, or you know, needs specific requirements to be met, or sorcery speed, like the Fire Cannon Blast. Because the removal is so bad, it makes things like auras and equipment really shoot up in value, and it also makes things like combat tricks shoot up in value. So your combat tricks, you know, your +2/+2s, your +3/+0 on first strike, essentially act as removal spells, with the caveat that you have creatures, of course. But they are a lot better in this format, so keep that in mind. 1-drop flyers are good if they help you draw ahead. Interesting, sorry, that was a bit vague. I mean, 1-drop flyers are good in decks like this at a low curve that can pump up the 1-powered flyers. I am really looking to pick up another 1 or 2 Anointed Deacons would really make this deck tick. So hopefully we get rewarded on that front. This pack has a powerful 2-drop in the Kite-Tail Freebooter, but we don't need the Freebooter at this stage. We've got enough 2-drops going into this pack. I mean, I would take it if there wasn't anything else reasonably powerful in the pack. But it's definitely not, you know, needed in this deck currently. If I had no 2-drops, then it would be much more incentive. But because it's not a vampire, I'm not high on it. There's a Queen's Commission, but here I was talking about lack of removal, and we get pick up Vanquish the Weak. There's a good chance we wheel something nice out of this pack, even though it's going to be quite late. Either Conquistador, Slash of Talons, etc., etc. Vanquish the Weak is a nice pickup. Alright, next pack. We're going to slightly deviate from our vampire plan. Boneyard Parley, I've not actually played this card. I think it's really good in Sealed. I think in Draft it's probably way too slow to actually get to get to that point. You both need creatures, or you just need a lot of creatures in your graveyard, like at least 4 to make, at least 5 really, to make it good. Which by the time you've got 7 mana is probably going to be the case, but still, it requires a lot of different circumstances. I'm going to take the Imperial Aerosaur here. This card is great. I think we're picking it up either 3rd or 4th here. 12 cards left in the pack. Alright, so we're picking it up 3rd, which is a nice little sign that no one to our 2 spots further on is drafting white, because unless there's a bonkers white card in this pack, I wouldn't see taking anything else over that. Nothing else really. We might wheel a Conquistador or a Slash of Talons. Excellent, oh gosh, so here's a pick. There's a Vanquish the Weak and there's a Bishop Soldier. We are light on removal. Vanquish the Weak is a pretty good removal spell, but Bishop Soldier this is kind of the first actually real tough pick of the draft, maybe apart from that first one. As crazy as it sounds, I think I'm actually going to take Bishop Soldier here, and the reason being it's just perfect for the deck. It's a vampire, it's lifelink, it's a 2-drop. I could regret this going into the pack, like if I end up with no other removal spells or combat tricks, and that's important to note. Like I really want to pick up a couple of Skullduggeries or the +2/+2 Vampire Zeal. I think I'm actually going to take Bishop Soldier here, and that's kind of a note of respect of how high Bishop Soldier has gone in my regard, my estimations, to be taking it over a premium common removal spell like Vanquish. Pretty easy pick here for us. Again, we're just in our lane, we're drafting our cards, taking Skyblade of the Legion, and now we're really satisfied in our 2-drop quotas. Anointed Deacon again is pretty much the best pickup we could have, and I would take that over essentially anything. Maybe a Sanctum Seeker, of course, would make it. I could pick up another Shining Aerosaur here. No point in taking the Looter, or I could take another 2-drop. I think taking another 2-drop isn't horrific. Like, Vampires normally gets clogged on the 5-drop spot. It's interesting that I haven't this game, but I don't think I'll have trouble filling out a couple more 5s, and the 5s I really want are Anointed Deacons. Getting all of these 2-drops is nice. It's giving us a really low curve aggressive deck. Here there's an option to take another Heartless Pillage, which is you know, I'm not super high on it. I've already got a couple of 3-drop non-artifact spots. I think I'll take Raptor Companion. It's not the best card, and it's not very synergistic, but it is quite aggressive, and our deck does look quite aggressive at the moment. Duress is a fine sideboard, well, it's not a fine sideboard, it's like a mediocre sideboard card against opposing Planeswalkers or something. take the Raptor Companion. We've already got one Cobbled Wings. I don't really want to play two since most of our stuff, not most of our stuff, Vampires generally has quite a lot of flying though, so the Cobbled Wings is less important. And Cobbled Wings is slightly better in like a green-red big dinosaur deck where you can give your monsters flying and where they couldn't attack through on the ground. Legion's Judgment is decent removal. So here we go, we're getting a pack with nothing for us outside of a Prying Blade. Since this is a league and not a just like a closed off draft. Well, I've forgotten what they're called. Anyway, but like if you're drafting with 8 people, you know you're going to play them. I would definitely hate River Herald's Boon here, but because it's a league, I'm going to take the Prying Blade. Alright, so we wield a Queen's Commission. That's good. Anointed Deacon is, of course, by far our best card that we could open in the next pack outside of a Bonkers Rare. Slash of Talons does wheel as well. Encampment Keeper. I mean, I'm a pretty aggressive deck. I'm not going to side in Spreading Rot. There's a very minor chance I go super low to the ground and play Encampment Keeper. I do have quite a few token makers and 2/2s, so very unlikely I play this card, but, you know, it's a possibility. So here we go, cross our fingers, hope for Anointed Deacon, hope for someone to pass us Anointed Deacon, which we got 3rd pick in that first pack. And what do we get? Well, no Deacon. Only card for us really is the Vanquish the Weak, which is good. Happy to pick up that second one, and also happy I got the Bishop Soldier out of the deal. Other than that, this pack looks quite strong in the sense that it's got Thundering Spineback, you know, big rare, these pirates, but it's actually like going into if someone else is looking at this pack, like Thundering Spineback is great payoff if you're a ramp deck, but it's very hard to get to that point without dying in this format. I'm also looking for Mark of the Vampire, which I'd kind of forgotten about to put on the Vanguard. This card is fine without Mark of the Vampire though. It's still a really good card. Mark of the Vampire makes it ridiculous. It's like, how do you beat this 2-drop? Vanquish the Weak, easy pick. Alright, unfortunately we did not get an Anointed Deacon, so unless someone's passing it to us pretty late, we might just be stuck on the one copy of this, which is a little unfortunate. We're kind of looking there for, we'll probably play this Prying Blade if that's the case, or you know, a Pirate's Cutlass would be perfect if we could pick that up, since that would allow us to make our 1/1 powered creatures into much more of a threat. Worth noting that Legion Conquistador did not wheel the other time, so you know, it is likely that someone else is also in Black-White Vampires. We just have to hope that they're far enough away from us that they're not picking Anointed Deacon. Paladin of the Bloodstained is a very decent 4-drop. I've been surprised by how good this is. Again, the 1/1 lifelinker makes a lot of a difference in a race. It's a good chump blocker. Again, the Paladin, you don't really care if it trades off. It's a vampire. It's got 3 power. Good solid card. Air Elemental in this pack kind of stands out as being one of the most powerful cards. No vampires for us, but we do get to take a Wanted Scoundrels. There's a Raider's Wake as well, which actually in this deck would be decent, since we have so many early drops. We've got easy creatures we can just throw away to trigger raid. I would definitely play the Raider's Wake. I think the Wanted Scoundrels is just on power level more of a hard hitter, and because we've got so many 2-drops, I mean, the thing, it's curious with 2-drops, like the more 2-drops you have, the more 2-drops you kind of want, because you just want to consistently get on that front foot. And the Wanted Scoundrels, if you can't answer this card, it's just a beating. No combat tricks as well in my deck, which is a little bit of a weakness. I'm definitely putting a higher priority on those combat tricks. Yeah, it does not look like we're going to get there with the another Anointed Deacon, since picking one up this late would certainly be pretty good. I'd be surprised if the person next to us wasn't in Merfolk, considering all of these kind of late really good Merfolk picks we're sending their way. Options here, there's not really, like, these other cards, like, they're in our colours, but knowing what archetype you're in, we don't actually want to play them. So I'm going to take the Conquistador here. Maybe there's a chance one of those others wheels, although probably not if someone took one of the earlier ones. Wow, this is perfect for us. I mean, a lot of cards here will be perfect for us. Vampire Zeal, Skullduggery, Anointed Deacon, they'd all be perfect for us, and I'm probably going to get them all in the same pack. But Pirate's Cutlass is a really nice pickup outside of a second Deacon, because it allows us to turn our 1/1s into 3/2s with lifelink. It's really good with all of our 2-drops, of course. We've got one Pirate, we could live the dream of Wanted Scoundrels into Pirate's Cutlass, giving us a 6/4 on turn 3, which would be, you know, the dream, but outside of that it's still a very good card. Looking to round out the picks here, there's a Steadfast Armor Saw, which I like a bit less in the Vamps deck. It's not a vampire, it's, you know, it's a 2/3, it's not that big. You generally can't get through on the ground with this if they've got anything particularly decent sized. I'm just going to take the Dust Legion Dreadnought here. The Dreadnought is pretty good when you've got this like dorky 2/2s. It turns all of my Queen Space soldiers into 4/6s. 4/6 is a really big creature in this format. Barely anything will kill it, you know, on its own, and even double blocking is kind of hard. Because I've got a lack of 5-drops, it's quite nice as well. Normally Vampires gets a bit glutted at the 5-drop spot, and you know that can be a reason not to take the Dreadnought, but at this point I've only got one other 5-drop, so happy to take the Dreadnought. Nice little payoff for us here in Vampire's Zeal. This is essentially going to be one of our removal spells, and yeah, very good pickup for us. I think that's the first one I've actually seen in the entire draft, unless I picked something first over it. Since we're this low to the ground aggressive deck, I don't mind taking a Vicious Conquistador here over a Raptor Companion, just because of the relevant creature type. With that said, I don't actually have much that cares about things being vampires, despite having tons of vampire cards. But I'm also not short on the 2-drops, and I think this will do a decent impression with the Pirate's Cutlass or a Cobbled Wings. So I'm going to take the Conquistador. There's a Pterodon Knight, which would just be a 3/3. I think Looming Altarsaw is a better sideboard card. Again, because it's a league, there's no need to hate draft any of these cards. Even if I was, I'd probably take the Altarsaw still. I could take Crushing Canopy. There's no huge flies in our deck though that we need to be worried about. Wow, okay. Second Legion Conquistador is nice, and I'm going to take it over Duress. That means we can play this first one, which is a nice little combo, get some value. Good cards in this, well, not good cards in this pack. Costly Plunder is a fine sideboard card, and can be good in the Vampires deck as well. Like, you can attack, trigger raid, sack your creature. I'm going to take Raider's Wake though, since we're so low to the ground. This could actually do some decent work for us. Grim Captain's Call, at the most, is going to get 2 cards for us back, so I'll take another Encampment Keeper in case we decide to get crazy. And yeah, so we're going to have to make some cuts for this deck. I'm going to turn it into a pretty low to the ground deck. Considering we got you know, tons of 2-drops, not many Deacons. I'm going to play this Raider's Wake, I think. Let's just see how many cards we ended up with. We ended up with tons of playables, which is nice in this format. Yeah, it's often, sometimes you get to the end of the draft and, you know, you'll be on like 20 playables and have to sort of scrape 3 more together. But getting this many is a good sign. Prying Blade is probably out, considering we have Pirate's Cutlass, which is superior. I'm also going to take out Cobbled Wings. It's not really the deck for Cobbled Wings. Most of our stuff has flying anyway, or is a 2/2. And I want to cut down on our non-essential, non-creature spells. Things like the Schooner and the Dreadnought, I think, are actually pretty good in this deck. They're going to just mean that our 2-drops are of some relevance when we get into the later stage of the game. So I'm gonna keep them there. Raider's Wake I really like with this many 2s and 1s and 3s. It's really going to punish the opponent, but there are a lot of cuts still to make. I'm going to play 16 lands with this deck since it's so low to the ground and we have no mana sinks. 16 lands, so that means we need to make 5 cuts. I could definitely see taking out Slash of Talons. It is a cheap card, but it's pretty bad when you're the aggressor. You kind of want to be defensive with this, and you also want to be playing against... I mean, I've been main decking this card more and more, but there's points where it's just not any good. It's annoying that we've got so many 3s on our non-creature spells. Heartless Pillage, of course, is a good combo with Raider's Wake. And, you know, we'll definitely be attacking on turn 2, so I kind of like the Heartless Pillage. See what else I could cut. I could easily... So, out of my 2-drops, my most likely card is a Raptor Companion. Everything else, creature-wise, is very solid. I guess the Skyblades are a little bit worse, but they do carry a Cutlass pretty well, so I'm going to take out the Raptor Companion. This is currently 19 creatures as well. We've got tons of creatures. I've got the option of cutting Legion Conquistadors, which I wouldn't be sad to do. Do need to get down to 24. Could also cut a Queen's Base Soldier, since Vampire creature type isn't as relevant. Do I prefer Conquistador or Queen's Commission? I think with all of these buff up effects that the Queen's Commission is probably superior. Let's take out 2 Conquistadors. And then I'd only need to make 2 more cuts. I've got 2 Vanquishers, Slash of Talons. I think I'm going to take out Slash of Talons here. I think we're going to be the aggressor enough at the time that, like, if we see a super aggressive like red-white deck, we definitely want it in, or if we're on the draw, we might bring it in. But assuming we're on the play, I think these are the kind of cards that we want. There's currently 17 creatures, which is great. If I cut 1 more Queen's Base Soldier, we've got 16 creatures, because I'm counting these Queen's Commission as creatures, by the way. 16 creatures, 5, 6, 7, 8 non-creatures. We've got 2 vehicles which can buff up our 1-drops. We've got a Pirate's Cutlass which can buff up the 1-drops. We've got Raider's Wake as a kind of way to punish the opponent for playing slower, and we've got so many 2s and 3s. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this deck. Another Anointed Deacon would have made it a lot better, but we kind of got there with just most of the other commons. Bishop Soldier, that Pirate's Cutlass late was a very nice payoff. So I'm going to add some basic lands. 8 and 8 seems good. Combine everything, have a look at our curve. So I definitely could play another 2-drop in place of a 3-drop here. I could take out that Heartless Pillage, potentially, to play that Queen's Base Soldier. In terms of curve, this is interesting. I'm not entirely certain about the Pillage is nice because it catches us up, but we also have lots of stuff we want to be doing on turn 3. And maybe the Raider's Wake is kind of doing a better job of it, and we just want a second 2/2. Yeah, I'm not entirely certain about that. We've got slightly too many 3-drops to be comfortable with. I've got 8 2-drops. I'm going to run it like this first, and then see if I get glutted at 3. And if I do get glutted at 3, then definitely consider putting in that Queen's Base Soldier. So I'll let you know how it goes. But for the first time, let's head off for the first round. So welcome to round 1. Here we are on the play with our Black-White Vampires aggressive deck, and would you know it, we got Vicious Conquistador and Duskborn Sky Marcher in our opener, along as a Plains and a Swamp. So essentially the nut draw for us. We're definitely keeping this. Lead off with the Vicious Conquistador because it hits for more damage than the Duskborn Sky Marcher does. Also the Sky Marcher has evasion. There's not many creatures they could play on turn 1 that would blank this. Old Growth Dryads being the exception there. Attack with the Conquistador. And just play down the Sky Marcher. Would like to hit a land here, although luckily we do have a nice play next turn if we don't, because we can attack with our Conquistador and keep the Skyborn, the Duskborn Sky Marcher back as a threat of activation. So, in fact, this works out perfectly for us. We can attack. The Queen's Base Soldier can't even block because we've got the threat of activation, and post-combat we can play Bishop Soldier. Opponent attacks into us. We have no blocks because this Bishop Soldier is going to gain us some life on the crackback, so no point in making unnecessary blocks. So we draw a land for the turn, they play a Territorial Hammerskull. Our choices this turn, we've got 2 different 3-drops to play. Queen's Commission doesn't really do anything in this state, and Vanquish the Weak just makes perfect sense considering they have a great target for it, and then we can attack with the team. So deck is curving out beautifully here. Of course another land next turn would seal the deal. In fact, we just really want to draw lands for the rest of the game at this stage, or at least for the next 2 turns. Opponent has a Queen's Commission, and our draw for the turn is a Vampire Zeal, not a land. So we can't play the Raider's Wake or the Anointed Deacon. We can either do Queen's Commission and have no mana up, or we can attack with Vampire Zeal and have a Duskborn Sky March activation. I think at this stage, since they're all tapped out, I'm quite happy to use the Vampire Zeal, which means we can attack with both the Conquistador and the Bishop Soldier and leave back the Sky Marcher as a threat of activation. If they block, we've got some nice tricks to do with Vampire Zeal. They do take the bait, block everything on the Conquistador. I'd kill the tokens first because the lifelink's more important in this matchup, but 4-powered First Strike's actually going to take out all of their lifelinkers before they can gain anything, and we gain 2, so very nice for us. They have a Call to the Feast, making 3 vampires. So opponents on the same strategy as we are, in fact. No land, but we do get a Heartless Pillage, which is almost as good. So our choice for this turn is whether or not to cast the Heartless Pillage or the Queen's Commission. I think Heartless Pillage is definitely the better option, since if we attack and enable Raid, it will give us a treasure, which means that next turn we can cast Raider's Wake, or if we pick up a land, we can also cast Anointed Deacon. So the question is, how do we want to trigger Raid and what do we want to attack with? It's slightly annoying that if we do attack and activate the Duskborn Sky Marcher, we then can't cast Heartless Pillage. In fact, it'll use our entire turn, so we really don't want to use the Sky Marcher. The safest play would just be attack with the Sky Marcher, hit them for 1, and then play a Heartless Pillage. However, the threat of activation is enough that the opponent might just not block, for instance, our Bishop Soldier, since that would be essentially well, it is a 1-for-1 since I'm trading with Call to the Feast. So here, looking back on it, I think the correct play is probably just to attack with the Duskborn Sky Marcher. I decided to be a little greedy and I attacked with the Bishop Soldier, assuming that they wouldn't block. I could also just trade for 2 tokens. They do not block, which means we get to Heartless Pillage them. They have to discard 2 cards, and we get that treasure token. Second Call to the Feast from the opponent, just looking, they discarded a Queen's Bay Soldier and a Heartless Pillage of their own. So 2 real cards, good 2-for-1 there. Now, so if we pick up a land, we can play the Deacon. We did not, however, we picked up a Paladin of the Bloodstained, which means we can either Queen's Commission, not have activation, we can Raider's Wake, and at this stage, I think, since they have 2 cards in hand, we know they're both good. I'm going to try and get as much value as I can out of this Raider's Wake. I have a flyer to attack with, so to me the most sense is to attack with this 1-1 flyer, and then sacrifice the treasure to cast Raider's Wake, stripping another card out of their hand, and dealing an additional 2 points of damage when the opponent is on 6, although they admittedly have 6 lifelinkers on the battlefield. This is a bit annoying in that we can't cast the Deacon again for a while. The opponent discards another Queen's Commission, so they're full on tokens. Imperial Aerosaur comes in and jumps a vampire. We draw another Queen's Commission, so essentially this turn I'm going to be casting one of these Queen's Commissions. So the question was whether or not to attack, and I think the answer is yes, I do want to attack. They have 1 card in hand and we have Raider's Wake on the battlefield. I don't mind throwing away a creature to get that card out of their hand, and the Bishop Soldier is the best one to throw away, since we don't want to lose this Sky Marcher yet, and the Vicious Conquistador can just get eaten by the Aerosaur. So I just send the Bishop in to trigger that raid, get them to discard a card, take out 2 of their tokens, although they do gain 5 life from this block. This is the correct block, I believe. They go up to 10, I cast a Queen's Commission, and the Raider's Wake will strip that final card out of their hand. Anointed Deacon, wow, so as you can see that was definitely the correct play. They attack for 3 in the air, we can't block that, so we're fine just taking it. We're on a lot of life at the moment, so it doesn't really worry us. Bishop Soldier, and we draw a Vanquish the Weak, which is nice. Question is whether really, I mean, we've got Vanquish the Weak or Queen's Commission, but essentially I want to vanquish the 3/3 flyer. The question is, do I do it on my turn or on their turn? And I think the payoff of doing it on their turn is a little bit higher. If they have a combat trick, it kind of hurts, so I might wait until post-combat if they, well, they just play their land, so they obviously don't want to get hit by the Raider's Wake. So with 0 cards in hand, I'm happy to I'm happy to use the Vanquish the Weak on the Aerosaur. They attack with their Bishop Soldier. Interesting choice of what to block with. Normally 1/1 vampire tokens are kind of more valuable than a 1/2, so I would block with the 1/2 and the 1/1 lifelinker. But because they have so many 1/1s of their own, this 1/2 is actually a much better threat, since it has to be blocked by 2 and it can block their 1/1s very effectively. Whereas if I just had a 1/1 of my own, I wouldn't be able to block. So I make this block, double block the Bishop Soldier, knowing they have no tricks, and vanquish the weak, the Imperial Aerosaur. Slight upside of Raider's Wake in the late game. It's not very good because they won't be discarding cards and taking damage, but you do get to play with perfect information because the opponent is incentivized to play everything in their hand. I make my only attack here. I drew my 4th land, so I can play the Paladin. Raider's Wake triggers and nothing to discard. So our next land will really seal the deal, getting Anointed Deacon to buff up the our Sky Marcher. However, a Bloodladder is also decent. Here I decide to make some attacks. I mean, I know that they have no cards in hand, so the best blocks they can do would be, for instance, 3 or 4 of these on the Conquistador. I'd get to take out 2, and then after that, the Paladin is essentially unblockable. I feel at this stage, since I can cast the Sky March Bloodletter and also activate the Sky Marcher, that I may as well use my mana as efficiently as possible. The Conquistador, of course, is doing good work, but here it manages to take out 2 of these tokens, and means that our Paladin is going to get through unblocked next turn, unless they draw something, of course. Sky March is going to drain them for 1, Raider's Wake is going to trigger. Any land, of course, Anointed Deacon would seal the deal, but the opponent scoops it up anyway. So looking at their deck, they have a pretty nuts token generating with 2 Call to the Feasts and 2 Queen's Commissions that we've seen. Still got 22 cards in the deck, they might easily have more. They've also got all the staples, the Bishop Soldier, the Anointed Deacon. Like us, they've got an Aerosaur. Unlike us, they've got a Territorial Hammerskull. And they also have this Heartless Pillage. So their deck looks good. It doesn't have as many 2-drops as ours that we can see, but it's definitely got the token makers and the lifelink, so we've got to be aware of that. So going into sideboarding, so we could bring in Slash of Talons, considering they do have lots of, small creatures, but unfortunately it does seem like most of their creatures are either tokens, which you don't want a Slash of Talons especially, or 3 toughness creatures such as the Deacon and the Hammerskull. So, I mean, I guess the most considerable card would also be our Encampment Keeper, a 1/1 first strike, matches up pretty nicely against all the tokens, but I think at this stage we don't need to be going that extreme, and our deck seemed to function pretty well as it was, so I'm going to leave the main deck unchanged and just go straight back in for Game 2. So here we are for the second game of round 1. Once again, we get a pretty nuts draw, although we don't have the 1-drops this time, but we do have Wanted Scoundrels, followed up by a 3-drop of our choice, either a removal spell or a Bloodletter. So this is definitely an easy keep. We are on the draw this time, as the opponent chose to play, as is correct 99% of the time in Ixalan. Opponent doesn't have a 2-drop, as we noted last game. They're a little bit short in that regard, so we can play down our Wanted Scoundrels, which is pretty nice. With the Vanquish the Weak as a backup, it certainly can get through for a lot of points of damage here, and it's pretty hard to remove from the opponent's side outside of Legion's Judgment. Territorial Hammerskull isn't going to block it. So the question here is, what do we want to play? Do we want to use our Vanquish the Weak on the Hammerskull, which is a good target, but it can't actually block our Wanted Scoundrels at the moment, so I think it's better to develop the board, which would mean either casting Heartless Pillage or a Sky March Bloodletter. Both are good options. At this stage the opponent is on 4 cards, so Heartless Pillage could definitely hit something of note. Sky March Bloodletter is a little bit more aggressive, but they are on 20 life, so at this point I'm actually going to opt towards doing Heartless Pillage and following it up with a Vicious Conquistador, since I can cast both in the same turn. I could also use the treasure next turn to discast the Dust Legion Dreadnought, but I feel like getting the Conquistador down is fine. That's a bit of a variable play there. Could easily go either way. I'll get them to Heartless Pillage. We'll see what they discard. Imperial Aerosaur on a plane, so that seems pretty good for us. Play the Conquistador. The opponent does have another land, so they must have something like a Deacon or the Calls to the Feast or something in hand. And yep, they have Call to the Feast. We pick up another land, which will let us play any of our spells. I'm not going to attack here. I could attack with the Wanted Scoundrels and try and Vanquish the Weak as an instant speed combat trick, but the problem is if they block with 3 vampires, I really don't want to Vanquish the Weak a vampire. So I think it's better to develop out the board, play the Paladin. We're in a pretty good position at the moment. The opponent's on 1 card, we have 3, and they're all good spells. Yep, second Call to the Feast, giving a ton of lifelinkers to our opponent. So the way we close out this game is either with flyers or eventually grinding out all of their vampires. At this stage, the only thing I'm really particularly scared about is Anointed Deacon, since that can make their vampires into threats. So I'm going to hold this Vanquish the Weak. The Territorial Hammerskull isn't doing anything, so even though it was a good target earlier on, now I don't value killing it with the Vanquish. Our 5th land means that we get to play either the Dreadnought or the Bloodletter. The Dreadnought is going to be a bit slow in getting through because of all of these chump blockers, so I'm going to opt to play the Skymarch Bloodletter, since it does give us a little bit of a clock, even though it's not as mana efficient. Just a note here, I've kept the Swamp in hand. I did see that the opponent had Heartless Pillage, and if they do cast it here, I want to keep my Vanquish the Weak, and so I'll discard the land and the Dreadnought. I can't see a point of playing the land at this point. Opponent does have that Anointed Deacon, so they will get to make a 3-1 lifelinker in attacking this time. I'll just trade it off with my 1-1, gain some life, and now we're very happy we've got this Vanquish the Weak in hand, of course. Drawing a Bishop's Soldier means we can double spell, we can Vanquish and Bishop's Soldier. We have an attack with the Bloodletter, so that's going to let us get through for another 2 points of damage. We'll Vanquish, attack with the Bloodletter, and now we can play out the land and this Bishop's Soldier, since Heartless Pillage doesn't really get us anymore. Opponent's playing out all of their lands after seeing our discard spells. So drawing a land here, I'm incentivized to try and clear their board before they get another Deacon or some way to pump up their 1/1s. I know they've got no tricks in hand, they've got 0 cards. Wanted Scoundrels is at least going to trade for 3 vampires, although if they're scared for tricks, they might block it with multiple. Also, the downside of losing Wanted Scoundrels at this point is minor. Giving them 2 treasure really doesn't do anything when they're on 6. I can't attack with the Bishop's Soldier, but I can attack with my 3-powered creatures since they can get through. And I kind of want to finish this game before they can draw some way to buff up their vampire tokens. So they just do a massive block on the Wanted Scoundrels, but do take 5 points of damage, so I'm happy with that. Get to take out 4 of them, give them 2 treasure. But now again, we're in a pretty great position with this Dusk Legion Dreadnought. Another reason for trading off with all of those 1/1s, by the way, means our 4/6 can actually get through, since they can't chump block it now for 5 turns, which they could have done before. Opponent displays a land that they drew. We draw a Vanguard, so we're just firing on all cylinders here. Crew the Dreadnought with the creature that can't attack profitably, and attack with all the ones that can. Probably trade off the Hammerskull here for the 3/2. Yep, they take 6 points of damage. Play a Vanguard, which isn't great, but again they've run out of tokens, so it's not the worst. Queen's Bay Soldier is going to make it a little bit slower, but really pretty bad for them in this situation. Queen's Commission will crew our Dusk Legion Dreadnought. We have to choose what to attack with at this stage. Since we're in such a commanding position, we don't really need to throw everything into the winds. I'll keep the Bishop's Soldier back, since it does trade with the Queen's Bay Soldier. Pay 4 life to give us indestructible. Opponent's on 5. So essentially we have lethal next turn unless they draw something great. Even Bishop's Soldier is not actually going to do it, because drawing this 2-drop means we can crew the Dreadnought, attack with the team. They're on effective 6 life because the Conquistador drains them. The Bishop's Soldier gains them 2, and even if they block these creatures, they take lethal damage. So round 1 went great, of course. Opponent had a good deck, it looked like, but we just kind of got on the front foot with our 2-drops, and we drew really well in that first game, certainly. Second game, we definitely hit lands when we needed to, and spells when we needed to, so that was round 1, and I'll see you for round 2. So here we are for round 2, game 1. We are on the draw, and our hand has 2 4-drops, 1 creature, a combat trick, and little lands. And normally these kind of hands are fine. If you've got, like, if these spells were creatures, I'd keep this. But as it is, this is pretty bad, especially on the draw. You know, if we don't draw anything, we do have a lot of 2-drops, so you know, it wouldn't be wrong to keep this hand, but if you just hit lands, it's pretty awful. Raider's Wake is bad by that stage of the game, especially when you can't trigger Raid. Imperial Aerosaur on its own is pretty bad as well, so I do take a mulligan here. I keep this 6, and I'll explain why, although, again, you know, very debatable. So going down to 5 cards is pretty bad in this format, since you're often trading 1 for 1, and so going down that many cards is not good. I do also, I mean, without this scry, so ignoring the scry, the hand actually is unplayable. Like, it has no things I can play. If I do manage to hit a swamp in the next couple of turns, though, I've got 3 turns to hit it to play the Wanted Scoundrels on turn 2, which can be a catch-up card. Like, even if I can't have any other plays, Wanted Scoundrels can draw me out of the game. And again, with Heartless Pillage, it's a catch-up card, so I can potentially, you know, from a mulligan to 6, really come back on cards with this hand. With that said, it is a bit of a risky creep. If I don't hit a swamp, and if I just hit black cards, it's pretty bad. Even the Scry is quite interesting. Queen's Commission on the top is a playable card, but I could easily bottom it because I really want to hit the swamp. I think the correct play is actually to bottom the Queen's Commission. I decide to keep it here. Just to get close to that swamp, because the swamp is really all you want. So in retrospect, it was definitely a mistake to play the... Well, not definitely a mistake. It was kind of a mistake to play the Queen's Commission. Opponent plays Kinjali's Caller into Bishop's Soldier. We hit a useless card and a black one. But we will be able to play this Queen's Commission as a fail-safe next turn. Unfortunately, it doesn't deal with the Bishop's Soldier very well, as any combat trick will allow them to get through. Opponent has New Horizons here, ramping up, making the Bishop Soldier a 3-3, which is a nice little combo. Now I can't block the Bishop anyway, even if they don't have a combat trick. Really want to draw a swamp, of course. Third Plains is alright. Any lands really at this point are quite good, since we can get up to the Dreadnought and eventually start crewing it. We can't block this, and there's no point in chumping yet. We do draw that magical swamp. The opponent has just passed the turn with potentially 5 mana. 6 really, if they have dinosaurs. So that has me a little bit dubious. Draw the swamp. Now this turn I can either play the Conquistador, the Wanted Scoundrels, or the Heartless Pillage. It's an interesting... like, I could definitely put the Wanted Scoundrels down and try to trade off with the Bishop's Soldier. However, the Dusk Legion Dreadnought in the turn after this will be able to be crewed by my vampires and block the Bishop's Soldier very nicely. So I think I'm going to play Heartless Pillage this turn, especially since the opponent's on 3 cards and they are ramping into something. I'm a bit worried at this stage because they have so much open mana. They've got the Sailback, the 4/4 Flash Enrage. Definitely something to keep in mind when facing white-green. They could also have like a Bright Reprisal or some instant speed combat trick, but passing with 5 open mana and 3 cards in hand is definitely a signal. So I decide I'm going to keep the vampires back, since I really want 2 vampires to crew the Dusk Legion Dreadnought. If I do attack into a 4/4, it becomes a 5/5, then I have to chump it. It's really bad. So in the end, I don't trigger Raid, even though I would get some lifelink. I just cast Heartless Pillage as a Mind Rot to make the opponent discard 2 cards. Hope you can follow my logic there. And wow, we really hit that time. So we got a Thundering Spineback and a Pounce, leaving the opponent with 1 card in hand. And we'd have to think a pretty good one. So let's see what they get. Another New Horizons. Dubious that they kept that, so it must be something else. Bishop Soldier becomes a 4/4. So I'm assuming it's a big creature, considering that they didn't play it that turn, and then instead they put a New Horizons down. Alright, we draw the Deacon. The choice here is whether we want to play Deacon and attack with a vampire and gain some life, or play the Dreadnought. The Deacon can't block the Bishop's Soldier because I'm on 10 life. I'm actually going to take the more conservative route and play down this Dusk Legion Dreadnought. I could attack for a couple of points. Well, I can't actually attack because I want to crew this Dreadnought, so keeping the vampires back. See what we're facing down here. Yep, that's a lot of mana, and the second Thundering Spineback. So I guess I'm glad that one of them's gone, but the second one could also be a problem. Opponent can't attack because of our Dreadnought. Our deck actually has no straight ways to kill this currently, so it's going to be really tough to win this game, especially considering they're on 30 and we're on 10, but we'll give it a shot. So here I'm going to send in with my Dusk Legion Dreadnought. Considering it has Vigilance, I can use it to block. The opponent could block on the Spineback and the Bishop Soldier, but I'm pretty confident that they're going to be worried enough. And in fact, the only way we really do kill this is a combat trick. They won't double block it. If they do, we get to take out the Bishop Soldier, which isn't the end of the world. But I'm assuming they'll be too afraid to block it with the Spineback, and yeah, they just take it. So this turn I decide, instead of casting the Deacon because it can't get through, I just want to double spell, play the Commission and the Wanted Scoundrels, keeping the Dusk Legion Dreadnought up. The opponent has no attacks. We draw Duskborn Sky Marcher. Again, I could play the Deacon, but again it doesn't do anything because it just gets chumped, so the Duskborn Sky Marcher is actually a nice draw, since the Deacon will allow us to power up the Sky Marcher and actually peck through for some damage. So even though it's not as mana efficient, I'm going to cast my 2 1-drops here. Past the turn, I can't attack with the Dreadnought now because they can make dinosaurs, which they're going to start doing probably for the rest of the game. 6, create a 4/4 with Trample. Good place to put your mana. Opponent draws a land or something, they've still got 1 card in hand. No attacks. We do have this Dreadnought, which is doing a very good job of keeping back our 4/4s. Very good size, this Dreadnought. It just matches up really well against most of the creatures in the format. Our draw is Pirate's Cutlass, which is nice. So our option here is to play Pirate's Cutlass, equip to the Sky Marcher and attack for 3, or play Anointed Deacon, pump up the Sky Marcher and attack for 3. So I'm just going to opt to play the creature. Play the Deacon. No good attacks on anything else, but we can attack it through in the air. And you know, this is a little bit of a clock, a 3/1 flyer, and next turn we can make it a 5 powered flyer. So unless the opponent has a Grazing Whiptail or some way to kill things, we are kind of in the races here. I mean, they've got quite a few Tramplers to get through, but we have a pretty nice blocking board with this Dreadnought, Vampires to gain lives. They reveal a forest with that Emissary. They don't attack, knowing that we have the Dreadnought. Pick up a Paladin of the Bloodstained. So my choices here are to play the Pirate's Cutlass and equip an attack, or play the Paladin for an extra chump blocker. Unfortunately, I can't do both, so I've got to decide what I want to do this turn. And I decide that it's important to get the clock going, so I play the Pirate's Cutlass. It automatically equips the Wanted Scoundrels, but we move it across to the Sky Marcher and attack in for 5. We want to really make the most of our opponent not having removal or a reach creature, and we're not in danger of dying just yet, since we can chump most of the things and block one of the 4/4s. We've got a bit of lifelink hanging around. Probably at this point the opponent wants to start attacking with these 4/4s, but they decide not to. So, you know, there's definitely a little way of life to go. We draw Imperial Aerosaur. So, interesting choice here. We could definitely just play the Aerosaur, pump the Deacon, make that 4, attack for 9, and then we would have 5. We'd have 8 on the next turn, so we could potentially get them down to 1, which would be lethal with the Vicious Conquistador. So looking at this line of play now, I didn't do the maths correctly. I think here is definitely the time you play Imperial Aerosaur, buff the Anointed Deacon since it's the most point of damage, I'm not blocking with it, attack for 9 in the air, opponent goes to 9, they do have a Bishop Soldier so they can catch up from this race. If they read my board correctly, they have to attack with Bishop Soldier, and then we don't have lethal on the next turn. However, maybe I saw the Bishop Soldier play, and I kind of wanted to keep the Aerosaur around for a surprise burst of damage, because the opponent doesn't know we have it. So instead, I just attack for 5 with the Sky Marcher, considering we're not actually dead on this crackback yet. Attack in for 5 and play the Paladin for an extra chump blocker. But yeah, I mean, it could be a bit of a risky play. Maybe the Aerosaur play was better because they would have had to attack with the Bishop Soldier then, probably all of the others, so that would have forced their attack, and we could have made some pretty good blocks. As it is, they definitely should be attacking this turn since you know, we're hitting them for chunks of 5 in the air. Opponent actually has a play this turn, Colossal Dreadmaw. And 2, 4, 6, still enough to make a 4/4, so that's kind of worrying. So we're really getting to the final stages of the game here. We actually have a good shot because of this Aerosaur and the flying threat. Drawing the land is nice as it lets us both cast the Aerosaur and re-equip the Pirate's Cutlass. So I'm going to do that play I talked about last turn, hit with the Deacon, buff up the Vampires, attack for 9 flying. I've got another 3/3 flyer back. And then I really want to move this Pirate's Cutlass across to a lifelinker so that I gain more life, block more damage, etc. Use up my mana efficiently. So the opponent actually has to attack this turn because we have 4 flying lethal in any case, unless they pick up a flying threat. The Bishop Soldier can gain them 4 life. They decide to descend with everything. A lot of blocks go in thought here. Basically, the simple way to do the blocks for this, like if our sole aim is to keep Imperial Aerosaur, Duskborn Sky Marcher, and the Anointed Deacon alive, since together that's 6 points of damage, plus the Cutlass, of course, is 8 points of damage, plus Vicious Conquistador, if we need to. But we've got 8 points of damage, which is all they can go up to this turn. So we just need to keep those 3 creatures alive, and as it is, we just want to block as much of this damage as possible. So you need to look at the trample damage, because each point of trample damage needs to be blocked by the highest amount of toughness possible. So all of my high toughness creatures I'm going to put onto the tramplers. The Imperial Aerosaur needs to survive, ideally, so that has to block. There's only one thing it can block, the Emissary, so it's going to block there. And then each of the non-tramplers needs to get chump blocked by a 1/1. So this is essentially how the blocks line up. Block as much trample as possible, chump all of the non-trample damage. Not exactly sure what the math turns out, but we end up at 5 life. Opponent has 0 cards in hand. Important to equip this Pirate's Cutlass again. Anointed Deacon makes it 5, and we attack for 8 in the air. So, wow, we really didn't expect to win that game, but we managed to get there somehow, even past the Thundering Spineback that we couldn't possibly kill. So let's head into the sideboard, where some nice goodies await. So we're definitely going to bring in the 2 Legions Judgment here. The question is, what do we want to take out to make room for it? I definitely want to keep the aggression on, keep most of my 2-drops. I think the Heartless Pillage and the Raider's Wake are really good in this matchup, since the opponent's going to have a lot of high costing creatures and is going to play out most of their lands. So I definitely want to keep the discard spells. I like the Pirate's Cutlass on flyers, so essentially I'm going to try and find 2 non-creature spells that I can take out for the Legion's Judgment. And I'm going to take out the Sleek Schooner, since that's kind of the least impressive of our 3-drop non-creature spells, and also 1 Vanquish the Weak, since most of their creatures seem like they've got pretty high power, and you know, we're taking out a removal spell for a different removal spell. So with those changes done, we're going to head back in for game 2. So here we are for the second game of round 2. As you can see, our sideboard cards have made it into our hand, both of our Legion's Judgment. This hand is not great, but it's also not the kind of hand you can really mulligan, since it's got a 2-drop. It's got effective removal against the opponent anyway, that we know. And the Dreadnought, as we saw, matched up pretty well against their creatures. So we do need to draw into some stuff, but we definitely, you know, we're not struggling for lands or anything at the moment. Vampire Zeal could be useful. Opponent has no plays. We can play down our Skyblade here. New Horizons means they have a 1/4, not that threatening. Drawing more lands is not the best, but it does mean we can at least cast this Dreadnought even though we can't crew it yet. I'm happy to trade damage, since the opponent seems to be a fairly late game deck, and we definitely want to chip away when we can. They do cast a Colossal Dreadmaw here, so these Legion's Judgments are going to be useful. They attack for 1. Drawing a second Skyblade makes it slightly off curve, but we do have to Legion's Judgment this 6/6 before things get out of hand. Attack for 1. We've even got another Legion's Judgment backup for if they have a Thundering Spineback next turn. We do know they have 1 more, and we've only got this 1 Legion's Judgment to deal with 2, so we have to hope they don't draw them. But Ixalan's Diviner puts another Ixalan's Diviner into the bin, and then they have a 1/4 Archer to basically just block our flying creatures. Have to say, again, with the opponent on 3 1/4 creatures, that Dusk Legion Dreadnought is going to match up pretty well here. So definitely going to get that down as soon as possible. Queen's Commission is nice, but as I said, we want to start attacking, so play the big ship, and next turn we can easily crew it and start attacking through. We've also got the Legion's Judgment as backup, so things are looking pretty nice for us here. It might take us a while to get through with this Dreadnought, since they have a few chumpers, but they're definitely no way near killing it at the moment. Opponent makes an attack here. I'm not afraid really of anything. It's a free attack, so I'm just going to block 1 point of damage. They have a 0/3 follow-up. Second Queen's Commission, so we can cast 2 spells. We can attack with the Skyblade to kind of signal a trick, but no real point doing so. Attack for 4. Play the second Skyblade, which leaves up the ability to crew the Dusk Legion Dreadnought again. Opponent has no attacks. So once again, we'll crew this Dreadnought. This time we can attack with the flyers, since they've only got one blocker. Peck in for a point of damage where we can. Opponent's still not blocking this Dusk Legion Dreadnought with the 0-3, for instance. Ranging Raptors is the play, and they pie us into Diction our 1-3. So again, we see Dusk Legion Dreadnought doing work, dodging the opponent's removal spells, and also allowing us to attack through everything on their board. They still don't have enough power to actually kill it, and we have a Vampire's Zeal just in case. So let's use this Skyblade that can't block to crew the Dreadnought. We can't block with it. We can't attack with the other Skyblade now, since they just block it. I would expect the opponent to start chumping at some point just to save their life points, but apparently they just take another hit of 4. Play Bishop Soldier. At some point we might just be able to go wide as well if we get enough tokens. No good draws from the opponent. We've still got this Legion's Judgment back up, so things looking great for us here. Outside of like a removal spell for this Dreadnought, where we're going pretty well. Play the Vanguard, and now they've only got 4 blockers, so we're definitely going to a point where we might be able to start attacking with multiple creatures. So here's an interesting play. Alright, opponent plays New Horizons onto their ranging Raptors, making it a 3-4, which doesn't really make much sense. Like, if you're going to block my Dusk Legion Dreadnought, you'd preferably put it on one of these creatures to make it a 2-5, so I'm a bit puzzled by this play. Could be a misplay from the opponent, or it might signal something. Just a little flag in my mind. A little bit curious. I mean, I'm not too worried if one of these becomes a 2-5, since we can still Vampire Zeal. And in fact, Vampire Zeal is going to allow us to have a pretty nice attack next turn. But it's a little curious. Our draw for the turn is a Heartless Pillage. And we don't really need the treasure, so I'm happy to fire this off pre-combat to see. They do have 1 card in their hand, so we get to see what it is. And then after that we've probably got a pretty good attack with all of our team. Opponent discards Awakening Sun's Avatar, so now we know the reason for the New Horizons, and in fact this card would really have blown us out. Opponent got a little bit unlucky, I guess, in that we seemed to have the perfect plays for them. Dusk Legion Dreadnought matched up perfectly against all of their creatures both games. The Awakening Sun's Avatar, we forced them to discard, and now we get to attack with essentially all of our creatures with the Vampire's Zeal, and the opponent just scoops it up. Obviously a little bit salty about that, but you know, I guess that's a bit of magic. And we definitely brought it in the right things. The double Legion's Judgment was great. Dusk Legion Dreadnought was the right size. And yeah, so some very, you know, the first game wasn't easy, certainly, but we were definitely in command for most of the game once we got in control, and really shows the power of black-white vampires when, in that first game, it's for sure, when getting on the board from behind with all of the lifelink and the flying, and in this game just, you know, having enough threats and removal to take care of the opponent's big creatures and winning with dorky commons and uncommons. So we'll see you for the finals. Here we are for the finals, and our hand looks great. We've got aggressive 2-drops, we've got lifelinking 2-drops, Pirate's Cutlass to buff them, and Imperial Aerosaur to follow up. So things look pretty perfect. Unfortunately, we are on the draw, not the play, so hand suffers a little bit because of that. Raider's Weight could be a pretty good draw. Opponent's on red-black, and presumably quite aggressive. I decided to lead with the Adanto Vanguard here, since it punches through most 3-drops. And the Bishop Soldier, for instance, could get brickwalled by a 2-3 or a 3-3, and you know, we don't really need the life at this stage. We want to beat down more than we want to catch up. So I think the Vanguard is definitely the correct play here. Opponent has a very nice one in the Rampaging Frostodon. Definitely makes our Bishop Soldier a lot worse, turns it into a straight up 2-2, and puts the opponent back on the racing plan. Luckily we get the first attack in with our Vanguard. Attack in for 3, no blocks. This turn I'm just going to play a creature, since I want to get, you know, Rampaging Frostodon kind of makes you into a racing situation, and playing the Pirate's Cutlass and equipping would be a little slow. So I play the Bishop Soldier down, even though it can't gain its life. Expect the opponent to attack here, which they do. We take 3 points of damage. Bonded Horncrest is the follow-up play from the opponent, which is a very big creature. Luckily it can't block, and once again I'm just on this racing plan, trying to get as many creatures down. I can chump block this Bonded Horncrest. Opening myself up to a double block on the Ferocodon would just be kind of risky for a combat trick. So I'm going to play post-combat Paladin here, since I get a 1-1 to chump the Horncrest and a 3-2 to start attacking. The other option would be to lay down a Raider's Wake, but I definitely would not be able to attack with one of these creatures then, since the Bonded Horncrest is so large. Unfortunately, can't gain life from the Bishop Soldier, which would be very useful right about now. We do take 2 points of damage from the Ferocidon. So Vanquish the Weak would be a really good draw to get rid of this Ferocidon. Opponent has a Rampaging Buccaneers. No, sorry, getting confused. There's a Rampaging Ferocidon, a Brazen Buccaneers, and they reveal a Direfleet Captain, which they keep on top. So that shows me something that they want to keep being aggressive. They take a point of damage, of course, and go to a combat, and they attack with the entire team. I have to decide what to block with. I could block Paladin and Vampire on the Ferocidon. They have 1 black up, which could mean a Skullduggery. If they Skullduggery, then my Vampire would die, their Ferocidon would live, so that's not great, and I would be taking 8 points of damage. I could also block a Vampire on the Horncrest and a Paladin on the 3-3, in which case Skullduggery would still kill my Paladin. I feel like we're actually winning the race at this point, since, well, actually the worst case would be I block their Skullduggery, makes their creature a 4-4 and kills my Downto Vanguard. So I feel like the safest play in this, considering we are winning the race, we get to hit back for 3, 4, 5, 8. We actually have lethal next turn with the Pirate's Cutlass, since that'll give us 10 points of damage. We don't need this Vampire. So I'm going to go ahead and just chump with the Vampire. Can't gain us life anyway. We're going to take 6 points of damage here. The opponent does have Skullduggery, killing our Downto Vanguard, which is pretty brutal, because now we can't win on this turn. We draw Queen's Bay Soldier. We have 5 mana. So the 2 spells we could cast would be Pirate's Cutlass, Queen's Bay Soldier. Or we could cast an Imperial Aerosaur, get in for an extra point of damage, and have flying and lethal next turn with the Pirate's Cutlass. It's an interesting play. If we play the Queen's Bay Soldier, we're definitely forced into chumping. We also give away the information we have a Pirate's Cutlass by playing it, so the opponent can play around it. I decide the best way to win this game is to play the Aerosaur and attack. The opponent then gets to attack us back. We're on 6, so any removal spell would kill us, but any pump spell probably wouldn't. We'd have to give 2 points of power. The opponent has 2 cards in hand. We know they're drawing Direfleet Captain next turn. So I decide to go for the slightly riskier play, I mean, depends how you see it, of playing the Aerosaur, getting our highest powered creature into the air and attacking for 4. This time my plan is to essentially chump both. We'll have a Paladin, which we can buff up with the Pirate's Cutlass, but our opponent happens to have the good old Direfleet Captain into Swashbuckling play, which just leaves us dead on board. We don't have enough blockers. So the correct play might have been last turn to the Queen's Bay Soldier and the Pirate's Cutlass, and then try to chump our way out of this. I felt like our best chance was actually just to try and win on the next turn, since they're on 5 points of life now. We could have had a lethal attack, but as it is, opponent had a really nice curve out, and Skullduggery really did work. Took out a 1-1 and took out our 3-1 attacker and really swung the race back in their favour. So knowing that, let's go into the sideboard. So from what we saw of their deck, they have a lot of aggressive creatures. They have a lot of power and toughness, and they really are trying to get us dead as quickly as possible. So looking at our sideboard, we do have a Slash of Talons, but it seems like it's not quite going to do enough damage against most of their creatures. I'm going to bring in a Legion's Judgment and take out something like this Sleek Schooner, which again is a little bit slow and dorky. Those are the only changes I actually made for this game. Looking back on it, I should have cut, say, the Dusk Legion Dreadnought, which is again too much mana, too kind of finicky to get working, and bring in just another 2-drop like the Queen's Bay Soldier. I think that would have been a good change as well. As it is, I just brought in the Legion's Judgment and cut the Sleek Schooner. So, on to game 2. So here we are for round 2 in the finals. Our hand is missing a Plains, but aside from that is very good. Has 4 1-drops and a Combat Trick, which against the opponent's aggressive deck seems very well positioned, so we're going to keep this. Probably leading with the Wanted Scoundrels, unless we pick up a Plains. We do pick up a Plains, so This is an interesting choice. I decided to go with the Bishop Soldier, and my reasoning is I have 2 swamps and I have a plain, so if I play Bishop Soldier, I will get to attack next turn and keep Vampire Zeal up, and then be able to play Wanted Scoundrels because I've got double black and only 1 white, whereas otherwise I'd only be able to play 1 spell next turn, which would be... I could also play the Queensbay Soldier and the Vampire Zeal, I guess, but I do like gaining life against this red deck, seems very good. Opponent does have a 2-drop, but that means we can trade in our Vampire Zeal here, gain some life, take out their creature, and drop a Wanted Scoundrels onto the board. Opponent has a Repeating Barrage, very nice rare, take out our Wanted Scoundrels, giving them 3 mana with that treasure, so they could play something else, but they don't. We pick up a Swamp, so this turn I could cast an Imperial Aerosaur, but considering they have no creatures to block, I figure it's better to just double spell, get our Skyblade and our Queensbay Soldier online, and the next turn we can jump something with the Imperial Aerosaur. They play a Fathom Fleet Cutthroat, so this turn I do indeed play the Aerosaur and attack for 4 points of damage, 3 of it lifelink, putting us up to a nice life total of 29. Opponent has one of the most annoying cards in the set in Mark of the Vampire. They're offering up the trade here against our 3-3 and our 2-2. We did see Skullduggery last game. If we play into this, Skullduggery would be a very nice 2-for-1 for them. It's kind of a hard position as well. They've also got a Repeating Barrage in the graveyard, which they can't get back this turn. So I'm tempted to go for this double block, but they have 3 cards in hand, and the chances that one of them is some kind of combat trick or a removal spell is pretty high. So I decide to, if I take this damage, it doesn't really matter to me because I'm on a lot of life total, then I get to attack back for 2, 4, 5. I get to attack back for 8, gaining 2. So the race, while not great, is slowly in my favour. However, the opponent does have a combat trick in Lightning Strike, so if we double block they would have Lightning Strike the Aerosaur anyway. We would just be down to Queensbay Soldier. No really good blocks here, again, so I attack for 5, gain 2, put them down to the exact same life total, and have a Queen's Commission to follow up. Definitely not a great position for us. We can't deal with this Fathom Fleet Cutthroat unless we draw our Legion's Judgment. Pirate's Cutlass is going to make it a bit trickier as well, since now it's going to be really hard to kill this creature. They do only have 1 card in hand, so I'm hoping to be able to kill it next turn. Direfleet Interloper reveals a Headstrong Brute, which is kept on top. Drawing lands is not great for us. The best play I've got here, I can't race anymore since it's a 7-6, is to block everything on the Fathom Fleet Cutthroat, hope they don't have anything, and then hope to draw good cards. They're definitely getting the... They can definitely get the Repeating Barrage back from their graveyard here, so... Massive attack from the opponent, clears our board, leaves us with the Skyblade of the Legion, but on 32 life, so we've got a few turns to find something. Unfortunately we draw Heartless Pillage, opponent has no cards in hand, and they've got this Repeating Barrage in the graveyard, so I've got no blocks since they both have Menace. I have to attack here. They attack back for 8, so we still have a few turns to find something. They get the Repeating Barrage back, and unfortunately for us play it, so we still can't cast this Heartless Pillage. Dusk Legion Dreadnought, while normally good, is not very good on this board, since most of our creatures are dead. Instead of getting back the Heartless Pillage, the opponent plays a Queen's Agent, revealing a Sunbird's Invocation, which also stays on top, and the final land basically seals the deal for us. We do have 1 more turn to live, but with 2 Menace creatures, Queen's Agent, Sunbird Invocation, Repeating Barrage around, things definitely not looking good for us. I'm note as much as the opponent, and they agree. We'll do so what our final draw is. Bishop Soldier unfortunately can't block anything with Menace, and a Fell Flagship follows up the trifecta of rares from the opponent. The 3 drops definitely coming in here. Fell Flagship, buffing up the pirates, cascading into Rampaging Ferocidon, Repeating Barrage in the bin, and that is going to do it for this draft. So, opponent had a very sweet deck, of course, lots of very good rares, very aggressive creatures, Lightning Strike, Premium Uncommon. That first game we could have played slightly differently, maybe at the very end, but again that Skullduggery is essentially what did it in for us. This game we just didn't really have a good follow-up, and the opponent had very good removal spells. The biggest mistake in this game potentially could have been that first turn where I played Vampire Zeal in order to to burst through some damage. The Vampire Zeal could certainly have come in much later and done some work against that Fathom Fleet Cutthroat. But aside from that, opponent basically just had a really good deck, and that's kind of how it goes in Ixalan. You stick to your guns and you see what you end up getting. So I'm hoping that you managed to pick up a few lessons, saw a few of the mistakes I played, and hopefully saw how I managed to navigate the draft. We did end up with a pretty good deck overall, and remembering that we picked up essentially no good rares, which are all commons and uncommons, it kind of shows you how you can draft to archetypes in Ixalan, make the most of it, and really hope that your seat and archetype are open. So I hope you enjoyed this draft for Arcane cards, and we'll see you along for the next one.